Some genres have experienced meteoric rises to fame, only to fizzle out in a couple of years. In this video, we'll look at 8 genres with the quickest rise and falls. Dubstep. Originating in the UK underground scene in the late 1990s, dubstep's signature bass wobbles and dramatic drops made it a cultural phenomenon by the early 2010s. Artists like Skrillex and Bass Nectar brought the genre to global attention with tracks like Levels and Bangarang, pushing the genre into the mainstream. Festivals and nightclubs became dominated by the genre, with the drop becoming a defining moment in tracks. It was even incorporated in huge pop songs, like Taylor Swift's I Knew You Were Trouble. By 2015, dubstep's popularity waned due to oversaturation and criticism for its formulaic nature. Many felt the genre relied too heavily on its signature drops, leading to it fading from the mainstream. As EDM broadened into styles like tropical house and future bass, dubstep receded into the background. The genre's peak era introduced electronic music to a broader audience, and its sound continues to influence genres like trap and hybrid EDM. Skrillex in particular transitioned into producing for mainstream pop stars. Electropop. Electropop emerged as the dominant genre in the late 2000s, blending electronic production with catchy pop melodies. Artists like Lady Gaga with Just Dance and Kesha with TikTok defined the sound of that era. The rise of synthesizers and auto-tune made electropop perfect for dance floors at the time. As music trends shifted towards indie pop and R&B inspired sounds in the mid-2010s, electropop helped bridge electronic and mainstream pop, influencing artists like Dua Lipa and Charli XCX, who mixed electronic elements with contemporary pop. Many pop legends owe their rise to the production style of electropop, and people in my age range look back at that era fondly. Crunk. Emerging in the south of the US in the late 1990s, crunk quickly became synonymous with high-energy bass-heavy beats and rowdy chant-like lyrics. Pioneered by producers like Lil Jon and artists like the Yin Yang Twins, the genre exploded in popularity during the early 2000s. Songs like Lil Jon's Get Low and Yeah with Usher dominated clubs and radio. The genre's appeal was mainly due to its infectious energy, making it a staple of party culture. By the late 2000s, crunk began losing steam as hip-hop trends shifted towards more melodic styles like trap and auto-tuned rap. The genre's repetitiveness and lack of substance and made it a flash in the pan as it evolved into other genres like trap. Crunk paved the way for southern rap, which went on to dominate the 2010s, influencing artists like Future and Migos. While no longer mainstream, it had its time in the spotlight, especially in the early to mid-2000s. Techno. Techno originated in Detroit in the 1980s and became the backbone for electronic music culture, with pioneers like Juan Atkins, Derek May, and Kevin Saunderson. Techno's driving beats and futuristic aesthetics captivated the underground music scenes. By the 1990s, it had reached the rave culture in Europe, becoming a staple of massive festivals. While techno enjoyed a resurgence in the 1990s, it struggled to maintain mainstream relevance as other EDM subgenres like house and trance gained favor. Its repetitive structure and minimalistic style limited its mass appeal, pushing it back into the underground scenes by the 2000s. Though no longer a mainstream force, techno remains a cornerstone of electronic music, influencing countless subgenres and artists. Its emphasis on rhythm and atmosphere continues to thrive in underground clubs and festivals. Nu Metal. Nu metal emerged in the late 1990s, blending heavy metal with hip-hop, industrial, and alternative rock elements. Bands like Korn, Limp Bizkit, and Linkin Park led the charge, bringing an aggressive, rebellious sound to mainstream audiences. MTV and radio heavily pushed the genre, and albums like Hybrid Theory by Linkin Park became cultural milestones. By the early 2000s, nu metal dominated both the charts and pop culture. Acts like Slipknot and System of a Down drew massive crowds, and soundtracks from movies like The Matrix heavily featured the genre. Its decline began around 2003-2004 as the public shifted towards emo, indie rock, and pop punk. Critics began criticizing the genre for being overly formulaic, while fans moved on to other sounds. While the genre fell out of the mainstream, its influence is still felt in today's music, with modern bands incorporating nu metal's raw energy and crossover appeal. Linkin Park's legacy in particular has kept the genre alive in cultural memory. Grunge. Born in the Pacific Northwest, specifically Seattle, grunge took the rawness of punk and infused it with heavy, distorted guitars and introspective lyrics. Bands like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and Soundgarden brought this underground genre to the mainstream in the early 1990s. Nirvana's Nevermind in 1991 was the tipping point, with tracks like Smells Like Teen Spirit and Come As You Are symbolizing a generational anthem. By 1992, grunge had overtaken glam metal as the dominant rock genre, resonating with youth disillusioned by materialism and societal pressures. The genre's decline was abrupt and largely tied to Kurt Cobain's tragic death in 1994. Additionally, many bands either disbanded, evolved their sound as Pearl Jam did, or struggled to maintain the same level of commercial success. Despite its short peak, grunge left an indelible mark in music history, and after it was a rise of many artists influenced by it. Its DIY aesthetics and raw honesty influenced countless bands in the post-grunge era, like Nickelback. Disco. Emerging in the early 1970s in New York's underground clubs, disco brought danceable grooves and a vibrant club culture to life. Pioneered by acts like Donna Summer, the Bee Gees, and Chic, the genre provided an escape. The release of Saturday Night Fever in 1997 turned disco into a worldwide phenomenon. Hits like Stayin' Alive and I Feel Love dominated the airwaves, and disco clubs like Studio 54 became cultural landmarks. By 1979, a backlash against the genre reached its peak, with events like the infamous Disco Demolition Night in Chicago. Critics labeled the genre as commercialized and shallow, while rock fans rejected its popularity. Disco's influence persisted in dance music, pop, and even house music. The genre's resurgence in recent years, fueled by artists like Dua Lipa and The Weeknd, proves its staying power beyond its initial rise and fall. Emo rock. Emo rock began as an offshoot of hardcore punk in the mid-1980s, but truly exploded in the early 2000s with bands like My Chemical Romance, Fall Out Boy, and Paramore. Characterized by emotional lyrics and dramatic instrumentation, it appealed to teenagers navigating angst and identity. By 2007, emo was everywhere. Albums like The Black Parade and From Under the Cork Tree sold millions, while the genre's fashion, tight jeans, eyeliner, and band merch became a cultural phenomenon. By the early 2010s, the emo wave began to fade as fans grew older and the music industry shifted towards indie rock, EDM, and hip-hop. Overexposure and parody also diluted its impact. Emo has seen a revival in recent years, with emo rap artists like Juice WRLD and Lil Peep blending its themes with modern sounds, and Olivia Rodrigo's huge hit Good For You brought back the emo rock vibes to the top of the charts. Which genres that were popular for a short time did I miss? Tell me in the comments below.